This is The Sports Life.
Now Russell driving in from the left point, trying to get it out in front. Yes! It's loose. Goal! Yes! Russell scores! The Spartans win it in overtime. The final score, Michigan State 4, Wisconsin 3.
1.4 on the clock. Danny Rocket Russell.
And welcome into the Sports Life. We'll team here along with Dalton Schettler, Scott Moore, and Rob Woodward. They were not too jacked when number one ranked Michigan State beat Wisconsin at Wrigley Field. What do you say? 1.4 seconds to go in overtime.
Just awesome.
That was really a lot of fun. And it was really cold out there, by the way. So, as we look at our show for this week, we have a lot of basketball to talk about. And one of the fun things we're going to deal with are the two teams that you could call maybe a little bit of a surprise, and they both wind up in the state of Michigan. Michigan State and Michigan, nobody thought they were going to be a factor this year, and I think they're a factor this year.
Oh, most certainly. They're both looking down at everybody else in the Big Ten at the moment when you look at some of the standings. We're also going to take a look on the women's side with Meghan McKeown, who's going to join us, because right now Big Ten women's basketball has 4 teams in the top 10, and they have a dozen that are looking like they're going dancing by the season's end. Big Ten women's basketball is really strong. We'll begin to break down with Meghan later on.
Well, Dalton, might as well hop into the sounds of the week.
And let's start with the only non-basketball thing we're really going to be talking about in this week's show. And that's kind of riding the coattails of that opening sound you heard. Michigan State beats Wisconsin in overtime at Wrigley Field with that game-winning goal from Daniel Russell. Here's MSU head hockey coach Adam Nightingale afterwards on the radio network talking about the event.
Yeah, it was awesome. I mean, I think, it's one of the many reasons you're right to get a chance to play in the Big Ten, and the way it's run first class on the tails of the Winter Classic. I mean, it was great. The crowd was great. I think it was the biggest crowd of the weekend, so it kind of built up to that. And they definitely got their money's worth. It was a really good hockey game. Could have went either way. Our guys were able to find a way to get it done.
And he said during part of a post-game interview that one of the great things about this Michigan State hockey team is they have a very low panic level. When they get behind, they don't worry much about it. I do have to add this, though. I mean, it was really, really cold. I'm talking to Scott Moore. He said his Diet Pop froze. Rob Woodward, the color guy, had a cup of coffee. It became a slushie. It was really, really cold. Yet, Coach Nightingale of Michigan State coaches this game without even a hat on.
Oh.
And somebody asked him, his ears weren't even red. He just standing there, right? So they asked him, why didn't you put a hat on? He goes, I'm from Sheboygan. This was like springtime. Anyway.
You know what? It fits the tough, macho kind of hockey type of stereotype there is, but couldn't be me, man. Couldn't be me. That is way tougher than I am. If we take a look at Big Ten men's basketball, a couple of exciting things over this last week. One, Iowa defeats Nebraska in overtime. They had to come back to do it. Both Josh Dix and Peyton Sanford went off. They combined for 61 points. Sanford had 30-some alone in the second half. And here's Iowa head coach Fran McCaffrey in the locker room talking to the team and Peyton Sanford about the incredible performance.
Now, I've only had one other guy do this, Peyton, did 30 and a half. Okay. You toughed it, but we lost that game. So we won it. Plus he did it in the first half.
I'll take that.
Yes. But I'm really proud of you. I'm really proud of the fight. I'm really proud of the composure. We could have quit when it was 52-37. We could have quit when it went into overtime. And start pointing fingers. Not this group. We stay positive because we love each other.
Nice chat there from head coach of the Iowa Hawkeyes, Fran McCaffrey, one of the really good guys. And these are the kind of games that get you into the NCAA tournament.
That's a big, gutty win. And the Big Ten, I think, Will, for the next couple of months, we're going to be seeing a lot of games like this where it's just dogfights, night in, night out. And that was a classic example of a Big Ten basketball game there with Iowa and Nebraska. Another Big Ten battle that took place at a different setting. It was Indiana and Penn State. They played at the Cathedral, the Palestra. And for Indiana head coach Mike Woodson, it was his first time that he got to walk the halls of the Palestra and get to take in this experience. This was him afterward talking about just how awesome of an experience it really was to be in this building.
Pretty special, man. It's the first time I've been in this building. This building was built in 1927, and there's a building in Indianapolis, Indiana called Hinkle Fieldhouse, which was built in 28. And I thought Hinkle was the oldest building going, but boy, it's special when you walk around this arena and you see all the people who played a major part in teams that have played in this building. I even saw my guy Bob Knight's picture in here, so he's been through here as well, so it was pretty special.
And that sound coming courtesy of Aaron Bracey.
It's interesting, Fran McCaffrey played at Penn, and he had a really good career there, and they have a little Hall of Fame thing, and Fran's picture's up there.
And what was the nickname back in those days? White Magic?
White Magic.
Pretty awesome stuff.
Yeah, it is.
Well, one coach that wasn't so happy after a game here recently was UCLA's head coach Mick Cronin. Now, Michigan went to UCLA and really put together a nice performance, dominated the Bruins, and UCLA head coach Mick Cronin afterwards really ripped apart his team. And this is what he had to say. It was a pretty viral rant. We'll let you listen to it. Here's Mick Cronin.
But we don't play. We're soft. So don't tell me you want to win. Like, just don't tell me you want to win. So don't tell me you want to win. It's crazy, you know. And it's every day. I'm tired of it. It's every day. I have the most energy of anybody at practice every day. I'm upset with everybody in that locker room, my assistant coaches and my players. I mean, I don't need to do anything else. I almost got 500 wins. I'm only 53. I mean, it's a joke. It's a joke. But yet I come in and I have more passion and energy and pride than everybody in. That's the problem. So what the truth of it is, Ben, it's really hard to coach people that are delusional. The hungry dog gets the bone. We got guys that think they're way better than they are. They're nice kids. They're completely delusional about who they are.
Well, that was an interesting comment. Well, he wasn't very happy, was he?
No, most certainly not. And look, I mean, if you want to parse through some of just the tone that was around it, you could understand why. And coaches talk about this all the time. The best coach teams are the ones where you don't have to manufacture the energy for them, that they produce it on their own. But nonetheless, now reinserting the context of the tone, that's a really tough look, I think, for UCLA and head coach Mick Cronin, because boy, those players, they're all on social media, and they saw all the comments about them that was in a reaction to what their head coach had to say. You have to imagine it's a little bit tough there at UCLA.
Well, one of two things are going to happen, and this is an easy one to project. Number one, the players are going to go, "You're right, coach, let's get this done," or they're going to not buy in.
Yeah.
And we're going to find out by just looking at wins and losses.
Yeah. No, it's a really good point. Now, we mentioned the team that beat UCLA in that game that set up that pretty dramatic post-game rant was Michigan. And Michigan head coach Dusty May has been quite the likable personality in college basketball for some time, but he recently did an edition with Jay Billis of 94 Feet, where Jay Billis will walk from end line to end line and interview questions about the person just to try and get a better understanding of them, get to know them a little bit better. Well, we could have played the entire thing for you. I think it was all that good, but I grabbed the last bit of Jay Billis talking with Michigan head coach Dusty May. Here's what he had to say.
You were a manager for Bob Knight at Indiana. He used to have some requests that were kind of interesting. What was the craziest request he gave to you?
The concoction of chocolate milk and Mr. Pibb formed some type of chocola.
Chocola.
I wasn't expecting that one.
I'm telling you, if you have not seen that video, go check it out. Jay Billis always does a great job on those 94 Feet episodes. But yeah, Dusty May, quite the character. Still rides his bike in Michigan every day to work. Incredible.
It's not Bloomington. It's cold.
Or Boca Raton, where he last was.
It's a lot colder than there. Well, when we come back, we're going to take a look at the two surprise teams so far in the Big Ten. One you just heard from their coach, Michigan. Up next, we're going to talk about Michigan State. But first, this timeout.
So, got one for you, boss.
Oh, yeah?
What's black, white, and dented all over?
I give up.
The company truck. I know, but thanks to our agent, we've already submitted an insurance claim and can track the status right from the app. Auto owners pays what they owe without any hassle.
Lucky for you, that's simple human sense.
Ask your independent agent if auto owners make sense for you.
Medicaid and CHIP offer free or low-cost health coverage for children and teens. Hospital and doctor visits, prescriptions, shots, and more are covered. That's peace of mind for parents if a child is sick or gets injured. And parents may now be eligible for Medicaid too, even if they've applied in the past. Enrollment is always open. Visit insurekidsnow.gov or call 1-877-KIDS-NOW. Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
If you have diabetes, listen up. If you have insurance, you can qualify for a continuous glucose monitor. With a CGM, you can continuously track your levels and trends and spend more time in range, significantly lowering your A1C. More importantly, a CGM eliminates the one thing most people with diabetes hate: painful finger sticks. Order your new continuous glucose monitor today. If you use insulin and if you've seen your diabetes care provider within the last 6 months, you may qualify for your own CGM right now. We'll do all the insurance paperwork and deliver your new CGM at little or no out-of-pocket cost to you. Medicare and most insurances will cover your CGM, so don't wait. Have your insurance handy and call the Aptiva Medical CGM Health Hotline right now.
800-948-6912. 800-948-6912. 800-948-6912. That's 800-948-6912.
We'll be back with more in a moment. This is The Sports Life.
Roxanne Watson is on a mission.
Hello, how are you doing today?
She wants more people to register as organ, eye, and tissue donors.
Are you an organ donor?
Yes, I am.
Yay. My goal is to sign up the most people in the United States.
What drives her? Roxanne's own life was saved through the gift of a heart transplant, made possible by an organ donor.
I decided that day that I was going to devote myself to the cause of organ donation and signing people up and honoring my donor by doing that.
Now she's back to health, and she's a powerful force helping to save lives every day through her work. Imagine what you can make possible by leaving behind the gift of life.
8 people can be helped with the major organs, and up to 50 people can be helped with a little bit of everything. And when you think about it that way, that you could help that many people, it's amazing. It really is.
Learn more and sign up as an organ, eye, and tissue donor. Go to organdonor.gov. A message from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Health Resources and Services Administration.
And welcome back for more of the Sports Life. Will Tiemann here along with Dalton Shetler. Well, today we're going to talk some Big Ten basketball. And we're going to talk about two of the teams that I think have surprised folks so far. And they're both in the same state, the state of Michigan. Michigan State and the University of Michigan. And joining us now to talk about this topic is longtime analyst for the Michigan State Radio Network, Matt Steigenga. And Matt, welcome to the show. And as probably some of you know if you listen to radio or Sirius XM, that Matt and I have been partners for quite a while. So since I get to talk to him all the time, I thought, well, we'll let Dalton have the first question.
Well, I appreciate that. And with the first question, I think really you just have to take an examination, Matt, at what Michigan State has done to start this year. What has been the secret ingredient? What has been the magic for Michigan State to rip off this excellent start?
Yeah, well, hey, thank you for having me. And, it's been interesting. I really thought before the season started over the summer, watching this team when they went to Spain and hearing the reports and looking at some of the stats, I thought, this was going to be a good year. And it's kind of caught a lot of people off guard. I guess it didn't catch me off guard, but looking through it all and having watched them now in person a lot of times, all the games, and they were so competitive against Kansas and had a real chance at winning that game. And then to watch them play, I thought in Maui, play some great basketball. And how about this? Lose that game to Kansas despite the poor shooting. And really, if this team has one Achilles heel, that's it. But they've been dominating teams with their rebounding, their running, their defensive pressure, the connectivity of this team. And it's so different than what we've seen over the last couple of seasons, especially now with what we have with dominant post players. I mean, it's just crazy. And this team's setting records at the free throw line, potentially but yet can't buy one from the three-point line. So they're winning in strange ways. We're trying to figure it all out from a numbers perspective, but when there's a lot of W's, sometimes it doesn't matter.
Well, the one thing, Matt, that's interesting, and I remember Tom saying after the last exhibition game on his post-game interview, he promised he would have a rotation down to 7 or 8 individuals. And what he has now is a solid 10-man rotation. And it seems like it doesn't make any difference who's in the game. They have people that can score and rebound and run.
No, I agree. And I rather than call it a rotation or subs, I think you got 8 to 10 starters on this team. It doesn't really matter. And I don't think the guys coming off the bench have any issue with coming off the bench. They're all playing around the same, minute level. And if you're playing well, you're going to play longer. And if you rebound and play defense, you really are going to play longer for a Tom Izzo team. So it's a joy to watch. We've dubbed the guys coming off the bench the fun bunch, and they are just spectacular. And the points they're scoring, there's literally no let up in the tempo. It's in some degrees, you bring a guy like Cohen Carr off the bench, and your athleticism goes off the charts. So it's been a real joy as a basketball fan to watch, and I hope this team has yet to reach their ceiling. And as I mentioned, if they can ever start shooting the ball well from outside, and they're going to, it's kind of a watch-out scenario.
It's interesting, Matt. They're scoring a lot of points, and as you said, in different fashions, but they're averaging over 81 points a ball game to start off the season, but yet only one player of the top 10 guys is in double digits. That's Jay Nakins at just about 14 a game. Have you ever seen a team that scores so much on average, but yet has only one guy in double digits?
No, I can't remember a time. I mean, you'd have to. I'm sure somebody's gone back and analyzed this, and there's probably one or a couple teams that have done it, but I really believe it's rare. It has to be. But yet, we have, I would imagine, 6 or 7 guys that are above 8. So, they're all right there. It's not like there's a huge disparity between Jaden Akins and the other guys, but it is kind of neat. It's really fun to watch these guys do what they're doing. Jackson Kohler, he's almost averaging a double-double, yet he's not in double figures in either. And I think it just speaks to what we just talked about. This is a real team. There's not any one individual superstar. And when the season started, I thought that might be an issue, and clearly it is not.
It's interesting you mentioned the quality of the post play. I kept thinking if Michigan State doesn't get into that portal and add a quality big guy, that's going to be an issue. But yet you mentioned Jackson Kohler and throw in there Carson Cooper and the starting post player Shimon Zapawa. And it's interesting, Matt, it just seems those three in combination have become a major force.
They really have. And, it's a pleasure to see Carson Cooper not that long ago against Western have a career high in points. That just shows you he can come off the bench and continue to, produce, which is what he's doing. And I never really thought Zapawa and Kohler would play well together, but they are. Kohler has shown, obviously, with his grit, determination, plays extremely hard. He can guard defender or offensive players now out on the perimeter, which is a huge luxury when you have bigs. So, it's interesting. Our post players were never getting double teamed over the last couple of years. Now they're commanding double teams. And although they're turning the ball over a little bit as of late, out of those situations, once they learn to get it to the right man and get out of there, it's a really big advantage for the offense because the defense is saying, we can't stop you down low. That is something that hasn't happened in East Lansing for a couple of years.
Well, when you look at the youngsters, Matt, you see Cohen Carr developing his shot. Xavier Booker at times is coming to life. What is your take on Jace Richardson, the 6'3", 185 freshman? Because he's shooting far out. He's shooting at a 61% clip. Has he surprised you at all?
He surprised me. I think he surprised everybody, probably other than himself. But he's doing everything perfect that a freshman should do. He's coming off the bench. He's not disgruntled. He's shooting at a high level. He's playing good defense. And the coaches challenge him. And when they do, he responds in a really positive way. You and I laughed the other day. I don't think we've seen a kid hit the floor more than he has. But what he also can do is he can get his own shot. We don't have a lot of guys that can really do that. And I think it's going to be a crucial thing in conference play when we need a big shot, when we have a close game. Jace Richardson will at least be that threat to give the Spartans that scoring option.
Well, Matt, we mentioned that there might not be the All-American on this team. And we can look up and down other rosters within the Big Ten where you'll find a player or two you go, this guy is unbelievable. But maybe they're not as good of a team as Michigan State. My question is this. The team game they're playing, is it good enough to win the Big Ten?
You know, it's a good question because obviously it caused me to pause. And I really do believe they can. And I'm not trying to come from the green and white blurred vision when I say that. And I say because of the schedule and everyone's schedules. I mean, you almost have to look and see, who's got the tough road games, who's got, the really maybe easier home games, who's not traveling to West Lafayette or Bloomington. And we're one of those teams, which is an advantage. And so when it comes down to that, I do believe Michigan State has a chance. Win your home games, steal some on the road, and then you have a real chance. This team, yes, they can contend because of that. And haven't looked at maybe the other contenders or the people near the top right now, what they face. But knowing that, yeah, I believe this team can win a championship.
Well, Matt Steigenga, longtime analyst on the Michigan State Radio Network, thanks for joining us. And we'll check back in because I think as this season gets later into it, meaning late February, early March, I think there's going to be all kinds of things we can talk about.
I think you're right, Mr. Tiemann. I look forward to it.
Mr. Tiemann. Whoa, pretty formal after all these years. But anyway, some of the thoughts of Matt Steigenga. Well, as we said, there are two surprise teams. And coming up next, we're going to look at the other one, Michigan, in just a moment.
Oh, yeah. Hey, Dad. Did you get a new haircut or something? A new shirt? You're looking good.
What happened?
A little fender bender?
How little?
A few days in the shop little. But thanks to Mom and our agent, we've already submitted a claim and can track the status right from the app. Auto Owners pays what they owe without any hassle.
Sounds like simple human sense.
I'm fine, by the way.
Oh, yeah, I was gonna ask.
Ask your independent agent if Auto Owners makes sense for you.
This is a potter's field. When people can't pay for their funerals, they are buried here. It is a lonely, desolate place, littered with unmarked headstones. No one visits. No one leaves flowers. But it doesn't have to be that way. For as low as $1 a day, you can ensure your family will have the money to pay your funeral expenses. We offer burial insurance plans that pay up to $30,000. Considering the average funeral costs more than $10,000, that's peace of mind for your family. There are no medical exams, your rates won't increase, and your policy cannot be canceled as long as you make your premium payments. Call now to get approved in minutes and ensure your final resting place is more than just a pauper's grave in a potter's field.
800-562-2407. 800-562-2407. 800-562-2407. That's 800-562-2407. Paid for by Final Expense Direct.
We all make choices about alcohol. Kids make choices whether to drink or not.
Bye, Dad. Remember, I'm going to Alex's party tonight and sleeping over.
Hey, remind me about that party again?
And adults make choices whether to talk about it. That's true of parents and every other trusted adult in a kid's life. Kids want to know our expectations, and they want honest answers in everyday conversations. So talk with your kids and help lead them on a positive path, because when you talk, they hear you. Learn more at underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
We'll be back with more in a moment. This is The Sports Life.
Here's a real-life story that affects 50% of all of us out there. It's called divorce. If you've gotten divorced and now you're struggling to pay your bills and your credit card debts are completely out of control, you need to call this special debt relief hotline right now. We help people with all kinds of money problems caused by different life challenges, a divorce, a job loss, even heavy medical bills. All these life events can sometimes financially stress you out and cause you to get out of control. We help people get their lives back by showing them ways to consolidate and reduce their debt, in some cases for a fraction of what they owe. If your credit card balances are more than $10,000, call us and learn how to reduce your credit card bills and monthly payments now. Here's our number.
Paid for by Debt.com. Call now, 800-810-1584, 800-810-1584, 800-810-1584. That's 800-810-1584.
And welcome back for more of the Sports Life. Will Tiemann here along with Dalton Shetler. And don't forget Auto Owners Insurance, simple human sense. Ask your independent agent if auto owners make sense for you. Well, last segment we had a chance to talk with the analyst of the Michigan State Radio Network, Matt Steigenga, about the surprise team called Michigan State. Well, that is one of the two surprise teams in the Big Ten this year. And the other one just happens to be down the road from East Lansing. And that team, the Wolverines of Michigan. When Coach Howard was relieved as the head man there, the team did not look very promising entering to this season. But all of a sudden, here comes a new coach and a new roster. And if you look at the standings as we speak, sitting alone at the top is Michigan. And joining us is the voice of the Wolverines, Brian Boesch. Brian, thanks for joining us. And maybe you can enlighten us. What has happened here?
A lot. And it started with Dusty May. The culture he has established, the roster he has built, and the tempo and style that he plays with has changed things completely. Truly, you went into the offseason wondering where this program could go, not just for the upcoming season, but for several years down the road. And it's easy to say, hey, it's the transfer portal era. Things can change quickly. That's absolutely the case. But it's easier said than done. And what Dusty May and his staff have done is truly remarkable. It is a night and day difference. And it starts with their dominant 4-5 combination of Danny Wolf and Vlad Golden. They can run a 4-5 pick and roll with 2 7-footers. It takes every team that's faced them a little bit of time to adjust to and get accustomed to. And it's something that Dusty's called a cheat code. So that's where it starts, but the roster has been built out intelligently. They play a fun style. They're the best 2-point shooting team in the country as we speak in terms of percentage, and they've got some of the best effective field goal percentage shooters in the country, led by those two guys, Danny Wolf and Vlad Golden inside.
Brian, I want to ask you, because you talk about the tooling of this roster and this personnel, and I don't think a lot of people right now would say it's one of the deepest teams in the Big Ten, but that starting five, if you analyze them and how they were meshed together, Brian, that seems to be the best starting five in the Big Ten at this point in time. What makes them mesh together so well?
Yeah, it's interesting you bring that up, Dalton, because I think that's one of the few things that Dusty May had mentioned at the start of his tenure here that hasn't quite come to fruition yet. When Dusty was at FAU in his 6 seasons, only 4 players averaged more than 30 minutes a game in a season. And 2 of them were on last year's team that was the year off the Final Four, where they had a bunch of established veteran guys who stuck around for one more go-around in Boca Raton. And Michigan just hasn't quite developed that bench, I think, the way that they would have hoped for had they drawn it up. But the acclimation of the 2 7-footers has gone, I think, better than anyone could have realistically expected externally. And I would think it's probably at least been a little bit more effective than people internally thought, though they had high expectations. But you add those 2 guys in with, I think, one of the best point guards in the Big Ten in Trey Donaldson, who he might be the most important player on this team from a what do you do if he isn't out there perspective. Because with Danny and Vlad inside, they try to make sure that at least one's on the floor at the same time or at any given time in the game. Michigan has not developed a secondary backup point guard, ball handler, or whatever you want to describe it as. And Trey had a huge West Coast trip here over the last week. He's huge. Roddy Gale Jr. has been a steady force. He had a minor injury suffered. He didn't play against UCLA, but he should be fine, maybe as soon as Sunday against Washington. And then the guy who's probably been the biggest level jumper maybe unexpectedly, was Nimari Burnett, who he was a higher usage player than he really needed to be in a perfect world last year, and Michigan's 2023-24 season was the opposite of perfect. And Nimari has come in. He's been a really good defender. He's been a great cutter away from the ball. He's shooting really well. He has gone from a 32-minute inefficient a night type of a player, but one who, grinded it out and was, basically went through his first full season as a healthy collegiate basketball player, to now a 25-ish minute a night guy who's as efficient as anybody on the team. And this is one of the most efficient teams in the country, so you put him in that category as a guy who has really impressed and certainly exceeded a bunch of local expectations by a pretty healthy margin. So when you bring all that together, it's a pretty intelligently built starting five, but it does have that cheat code of 2 7-footers, one of whom can operate like a guard. That makes any starting lineup look really good.
Well, Brian, one of the things that kind of caught my eye was you made your West Coast swing. You had Southern Cal, then UCLA. Southern Cal, so-so-co, you win that game by double digits, but at UCLA, a ranked Bruin team, 94-75, did that surprise you?
Just how emphatic it was did, because you go on the road against a ranked team. Shoot, you go on the road against a Big Ten team and you win by 19. That is a huge performance. And, Michigan went up big early, lost the lead, trailed by 4, and still ended up winning by 19 points. And it was impressive because Danny Wolf battled foul trouble. He's not someone who's had a lot of foul issues in his career. It was only the 5th game he'd ever gotten to 4 fouls as a collegiate basketball player, and he's been a 2-year starter now. So, for Michigan to do that as efficiently, effectively as it did offensively against one of the best defenses in the country. I mean, UCLA was top 10 in defense in pretty much any available metric going into that game. They were averaging giving up 59 points a game. Michigan dropped 47 against them in both halves. So certainly eyebrow-raising. Certainly, I think an announcement that Michigan is going to be a force in the Big Ten. And because they have 3 road wins already in the league, that puts Michigan in such a unique spot early on in conference play to that they are absolutely one of the favorites in the Big Ten. Now, a lot can happen, but I think that UCLA game confirmed what many believed could be true, that Michigan has a chance to go from worst to first in this league.
Well, looking at your schedule, Brian, it looks pretty favorable. The next 3 coming up in your 2 plays, you got Purdue twice, you got Michigan State twice. Do you believe this schedule's lining up pretty nice considering the things that have already been accomplished?
Yeah, certainly the next few games are winnable, and it could set up a potential first-place battle at Mackey Arena later this month against Purdue. But this is where Michigan probably needs to, get a few and extend the lead a little bit before getting into a really challenging month of February and into March. Now they're lucky that they get Illinois at home only. They don't have. They get Rutgers twice. Who knows what Rutgers will look like when they face them twice in the month of February. But yeah, double plays against Michigan State and Purdue. Those could determine this Big Ten race because of how well Michigan State has started. Obviously, Purdue with Braden Smith leading the way has been really, really solid. So Michigan is doing its work early to set themselves up for a very challenging month of February. But that's the Big Ten. There are very few, if any, free squares in this league. No disrespect to Washington, but Washington at home is as close to it, and it's still not an easy game. Washington, they after Illinois bludgeoned Oregon, Washington almost got Illinois at home. So, the Huskies are playing really hard. I think they're building something really impressively there. But them in Minnesota, which is Michigan's next 2 games, those are losses that when you sit there in mid-March and you look at them, they'd probably be maybe the only 2, maybe Rutgers if they self-combust. Those would be the candidates of games that you look at and go, boy, that should not have happened if you want to be considered a Big Ten championship contender, a team fighting for a top 4 seed in the NCAA tournament.
Brian, before we get you out of here, from the surface, Dusty May seems to be such a likable character. I'm curious because you have so much more access with Dusty May, kind of the conductor of this first-year turnaround for the Michigan Wolverines. What's he like? How has this all been able to work with his personality?
Yeah, he's awesome. And the way I describe him in one word is intentional. To expound upon that a little bit, I think it's friendly but cerebral intentionality. He is so efficient with his time. He is a basketball junkie, and he wants to lead with a fun brand of basketball, one that is easy to embrace, easy to want to come out and watch. But he'll stay after these guys. It's not, he's not 100% all the time a player's coach. The first thing he mentioned in the locker room after the game on Tuesday, a 19-point win on the road against a ranked team, was the turnovers. Now, he also said if every 3 plays we're going to get 2 dunks and a turnover, that's still efficient basketball, right? That's still 1.3 points per possession, which is where Michigan was against UCLA. So they will take that. That works. But certainly if you want to do what anyone wants to do in this country, win your league, go deep into the NCAA tournament, maybe make a Final Four, you need to not be quite as turnover prone. But yeah, I mean, Dusty is maybe more than anyone I've been around in my time at Michigan and in sports. He is exactly what you would think he would be if you listen to a podcast or an interview with him, you read an article about him. He is what he says he is. And so far, through half of this regular season, his team is what he said his team would be. And in April, there were a lot of question marks about that because Michigan had a barren cupboard coming off an 8-24 season with seemingly very little NIL support. And he's gotten that. He's gotten a roster, and they've played really, really well. It's a joy to be around him, and he is very much a tone setter and has been since he arrived in late March.
As always, Brian, it's great talking to you, so I'm sure we're going to see you somewhere along the way.
Sounds good, fellas. Appreciate you.
Brian Boesch, the voice of the Michigan Wolverines, and I think they're going to be in Dalton for a good season, and a surprisingly good season, I do believe. Well, maybe if you have been looking at basketball just from a men's standpoint, maybe you're surprised with the conversation we're about to have with Meghan McKeown. Women's basketball has become a force in the landscape of sports. We're going to talk about it in just a moment.
So, got one for you, boss.
Oh, yeah?
What's black, white, and dented all over?
I give up.
The company truck. I know, but thanks to our agent, we've already submitted an insurance claim and can track the status right from the app. Auto owners pays what they owe without any hassle.
Lucky for you, that's simple human sense.
Ask your independent agent if auto owners make sense for you.
If you served honorably in our nation's armed forces and you're looking for a way to continue serving your fellow veterans in your community, then join AMVETS. AMVETS members volunteer millions of hours at VA healthcare facilities from coast to coast, helping to improve the lives of their fellow veterans through the VA Voluntary Services Program. AMVETS posts and departments also participate in a wide variety of community service projects. If you no longer wear the uniform today, you can still serve through the AMVETS by joining today at amvets.org.
Do you hear that? That's the sound of uncertainty lurking under your hood. You know the feeling. I know I do. That sudden sinking sensation when you see a check engine light or your car unexpectedly breaks down and you're faced with sky-high repair bills. It's time to shield against unexpected repairs with CarShield. CarShield is America's most trusted auto protection company and has an A rating with the Better Business Bureau. Don't let the fear of a breakdown keep you up at night. Trust the Shield, CarShield, and say goodbye to terrifying repair bills and hello to peace of mind. Your plan also comes with 24/7 roadside assistance, courtesy towing, rental car options, and so much more. Don't wait till it's too late. Call CarShield now before a breakdown. Protect your wallet. Protect your car with CarShield. Get our best protection ever. Call now. You'll thank me later. 800-965-1292. 800-965-1292. That's 800-965-1292.
We'll be back with more in a moment. This is The Sports Life.
Did you receive a call or message that mentioned Social Security and demanded immediate action? Did the caller know your Social Security number or other personal information and tell you that your Social Security number had been used in connection with the crime? Did you feel worried that your Social Security number might be suspended, your bank account might be frozen or seized, or you could be arrested? That is not the Social Security Administration. Social Security will not threaten you, demand your personal information, or instant payment, email or text you pictures or documents, or use a real government official's name to gain your trust. Social Security does not accept payments by gift card, prepaid debit card, internet currency, or by mailing cash. Criminals use these forms of payment because they are hard to trace. Do not be fooled. Hang up. Ignore them. Report this criminal activity to the Social Security Administration Office of the Inspector General at oig.ssa.gov.
Produced at U.S. taxpayer expense.
And welcome back for more of the Sports Life. Will Tiemann here along with Dalton Shetler. Well, last year during the show, and maybe the year before, thanks to Caitlin Clark, the topic of women's basketball became more relevant as crowds grew, teams got better, more people watched on TV, listened on radio. So all of a sudden, women's basketball became a force. And one of the key people in covering that from almost the beginning of this upsurgence of this sport has been Meghan McKeown. You see her work on ESPN, BTN, NBC, Fox. So, Meghan, welcome to the show. You're about everywhere. But before we talk about women's basketball and what it's like after Caitlin Clark, 9 months pregnant in the middle of basketball season?
I mean, Will, could I time this any worse?
I don't think
talk
so.
about, you got to have, time and score, right? You got to have that awareness. And clearly my guard mind was not functioning. So, no, but we're really excited. My husband and I, having a little boy on Super Bowl Sunday, which is, somehow a month away. And we're super excited to, have a basketball baby. As Will, you shared with me, you have a basketball baby. So we're in good company.
There you go. Well, Dalton, what do you got?
Well, Meghan, if we take a look at the Big Ten, I mean, Will mentioned that this conference has had so much star power over years with Caitlin Clark and some others. Of course, everybody knew about Juju Watkins heading into the year, but I don't know if everybody is paying attention. If they aren't, they should, Meghan, because UCLA right now is the best team in collegiate women's basketball. What makes them so good and right now the favorite to be the national champs at this point in the season?
UCLA is so good because, one, they're balanced. They have tremendous outside shooting. They have really good guards like Kiki Rice that can get into the paint and create in the mid-range. And then, of course, they're one of the hardest teams to match up against because they have a 6'7" playmaker in Lauren Betts. And the playmaking piece is what's so special to me. Lauren Betts as a post player fundamentally is excellent. Her footwork, she gets to the spots early in the possession. She's really hard to push off of. She can finish, every which way. She's got quick hips, all of the fundamentals. But what makes her so special to me is that no matter what coverage you throw at her, she's going to make the right decision. And her IQ in terms of passing out of a double team right into the shooting pocket of her teammate in the opposite corner makes her so dangerous because you're trying to take away one thing from UCLA when you go in to scout them. But there's too many things that they're good at that they'll kill you with if you don't, try to lessen the blow somewhere else. So they're just too deep. They're too dangerous. And Lauren Betts is too difficult to match up against for anybody to really, I think, challenge them at this point in time. The only way right now to beat UCLA is that you hope Lauren Betts misses the bus or misses the airplane to the game because that's how dangerous she has been so far in Big Ten play.
So, Meghan, when we look at the standing as we talk, to see UCLA, Southern Cal, Ohio State at the top, we maybe could have guessed that one, in Maryland just a game back. But the one that catches my eye here is Minnesota. They're sitting there in 4-1 in conference play, and they've only lost one time all season. Did that surprise you?
It did surprise me. Now, to start out the season, Minnesota did not have a super tough non-conference schedule. And we talked to Dawn Plitzwhite about this, actually. I had their game against Nebraska to start out Big Ten play last month. And she was like, look, it's really difficult nowadays to have these tough non-conference schedules when the Big Ten has become as tough as it is. And, you need to get wins, and you need to generate some W's in that column so when you do go into conference play, one, you have confidence with your team, and especially with teams that are younger. Even teams like Minnesota who returned at the moment, most of their starting lineup, Mara Braun obviously out for indefinitely at the moment. But everybody has different roles, and so you need to gain some confidence by playing against competition that you're better than, that you can get some wins so your team feels good, and you can build that cohesion. And then, two, you need to generate some wins. So early on, I was a little worried because they hadn't necessarily faced some really tough competition like some other teams had set up. They lost to Nebraska in, I believe, that first Big Ten game that they played. But since then, they've been rolling, and that's without Mara Braun, which is impressive. Minnesota defends. It's something that they've been able to do really well since Don Plitzaway took over. And then you have Tori McKinney, the freshman who's come in, and she's Division I Big Ten ready, which nowadays I'm so fascinated by the freshmen in college basketball in general. There's a ton in the Big Ten we can talk about. But they've come in, and long gone are the days where you don't redshirt or you're not playing very many minutes, because in high school, they're getting with trainers. Their bodies are ready. They're strong enough to handle the physicality of college basketball. And then so many of those guards, even the post players, have guard skills. Their handles are so good, and their decision-making is better because they've taken the time to specialize early and really learn the game. So across the board, you're seeing freshmen come in and make an immediate impact. Tori McKinney is one of those freshmen from Minnesota, and I've been impressed with her play so far. But also, it's all about scheduling. You have some teams that are having to play the top 6 teams in the Big Ten front-loaded, and then, the schedule lightens up a little bit towards the end, and then there's the opposite. So, Minnesota right now able to take advantage of also some teams that have been down, beating Illinois without Makaira Cook and Gretchen Dolan got hurt. So taking advantage of your opportunities is huge. And also when you have really talented pieces around you, that helps.
Megan, I want to ask you because, we talk about UCLA being number 1, USC's number 2 in the Big Ten. Maryland, Ohio State, 3-4, depending on maybe your flavor of the day. You could flip-flop those two maybe back and forth. But 5 through 12, you throw in that Minnesota team that Will mentioned. You throw in Michigan State. You throw in Michigan. You throw in Indiana. You throw in Illinois. You throw in Washington, who sneakily somehow is in this conversation now. Nebraska. There's a lot of different teams that are in this, and that's, to your point, what makes this conference so tough is 5 through 12, how good they are. Who do you like at the top of that class of the Big Ten and women's basketball right now?
When you kind of look at, like you said, 5 through 12, which is crazy as I pull up the standings now. I think Nebraska obviously is a really good team that is still has started to pick it up and get it together. They won, their last 2. Been impressed with them. You talk about Michigan State, the way that Robin Freilic's been able to get her team to play since coming to East Lansing is impressive. No one likes to get pressed. No one likes to have to play at such a fast pace the entirety of a game. And that's been such a huge advantage. Plus you have the veterans on that team as well. You look at Michigan and the youth that they have and how quickly they've been able to put it together. That Michigan-South Carolina game to start the season, everybody thought it was going to be a blowout. And for that to be as tight as it was, with Michigan only almost knocking off the defending national champs at a neutral site, is wild. They returned 4 players from last year's roster. That's crazy. We could talk about each of those teams you named. Iowa is interesting. They're still taking some time. It's interesting watching Iowa in the post-Caitlin Clark era. We have been so used to seeing the Iowa Hawkeyes with Caitlin Clark at point guard and what she does, and not just from a scoring perspective, but just from a facilitating perspective, how they run their offense, how she got everybody to their spots. And it's taken Iowa a little bit of time to adjust to new roles. And Hannah Stolke is now playing the 4 this season. Lucy Olsen is a really good player that's come in, but she's not Caitlin Clark. So it's not, exactly the same. And she's still done a really good job scoring, but she's, still learning her teammates, still learning the offense as the season has progressed. So it takes time. And even though we're in January and we're starting to get into the thick of conference play, your team in January can be completely different than the version of your team in February, just as you continue to get more experience.
Well, the experts, Megan, say maybe 12 Big Ten teams make the tournament. Do you agree with that? And if there is 12, is there a national champion in there?
Well, I hope there's a Final Four team at least in there because, you guys have been covering the Big Ten long enough to know the biggest knock against the conference has been, well, where are your Final Four teams? Well, the last 2 years you've had Iowa in there, which is great. And this year, there's no reason why. I look at just what we've seen so far on the floor. I think UCLA is a Final Four team. USC, huge win over Maryland on the road. I think Maryland is one of the teams that's not getting talked about enough with how good they have been and how deep they are. That team, depending on how they get, seeded in the tournament, can make a run. Ohio State is always someone who could be in that conversation, and the depth that they've had and how deep of runs they've made in March in recent years. 12 feels right. That's my Big Ten bias talking. I would love to see 12 teams in the NCAA tournament. I'm really interested to see how the committee treats some of these bigger conferences now. I'm talking Big Ten, of course, ACC expanded as well. The conferences that have 18 teams now. Do you open up the door for more of those teams to get at-large bids because the conference play is so tough? Does that mean that moving forward, more teams are going to schedule really easy non-conferences so they can rack up wins on the front end and their resume looks better because the Big Ten's so tough? Or do you reward the teams that are maybe in the smaller conferences, say like a Big East team, that plays a really tough non-conference schedule, maybe breaks even, comes out, somewhat untarnished, but the conference isn't necessarily as strong? I'm really curious to see how they continue to approach these big power conferences in terms of numbers of teams getting in. Is conference play going to matter most? Is non-conference play, are you going to get punished for it, or are you going to get rewarded for it?
Well, Megan, as always, it's fun to talk to you. And normally we say thanks, and we say we'll talk to you soon, but I'll add good luck.
Thank you.
That day's coming quick.
I'll take all the luck I can get, so I appreciate it, and always so great coming on and talking to you two. You are wonderful at what you do, and you two have also helped make women's basketball what it is. So thank you to you guys.
You're very welcome. Good luck, Megan.
Thanks.
Some perspective from one of the best, Meghan McKeown. Well, when we come back with more of the sports life, we'll have our parting shots in just a moment.
Oh, yeah. Hey, Dad. Did you get a new haircut or something? A new shirt? You're looking good.
What happened?
A little fender bender?
How little?
A few days in the shop little. But thanks to Mom and our agent, we've already submitted a claim and can track the status right from the app. Auto Owners pays what they owe without any hassle.
Sounds like simple human sense.
I'm fine, by the way.
Oh, yeah, I was going to ask.
Ask your independent agent if Auto Owners makes sense for you.
Everything is expensive right now. Gas, food, you name it. You're spending more, you are making the same or less money. So, what do? You rack up credit card debt. That's what you do. It's not your fault. It's the economy. And guess what? If you rack up too much credit card debt like some of us, you can't pay your bills. Then the credit card companies, as nice as they are, start hounding you for money. Then you start your downward spiral. A smart thing for you to do is to call the Zero Debt. They can help you consolidate all your credit card bills into one affordable payment. Millions of people have done it. It works to make you debt-free. Make this free call right now. It costs you nothing to learn more.
800-298-9093. 800-298-9093. 800-298-9093. That's 800-298-9093.
We are strong, we are resilient, and we will get through this together. But these are stressful times, and it's important to also practice good self-care. It's normal to feel overwhelmed, anxious, or afraid, but there is hope. Reach out to someone, connect with your friends, stay in touch with your community, and know that you are not alone. Learn more at wearebroadcasters.com/hope. Furnished by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
We'll be back with more in a moment. This is The Sports Life.
I found hope in the midst of an overwhelming situation.
Alcoholism is a disease that can affect any family. Everyone suffers, but there is help and hope at Al-Anon Family Groups.
Al-Anon gave me my life back. I'm a better father and husband.
Are you in an overwhelming situation because of someone else's drinking? Al-Anon and Alateen can help. Local and virtual meetings are available. Maybe one could work for you. Call 1-866-200-0033 or visit alanon.org/hope.
I'm Naheem Hines, professional football player. No matter the challenges I face every day in the NFL, my mom is always there for me, despite her own struggles with muscular dystrophy. And MDA is there for my mom. At their 150 care centers across the U.S., MDA is the leading organization in research and care for kids and adults with muscular dystrophy, ALS, and related neuromuscular diseases. Join me and learn more at helpmda.org today. Thank you.
And welcome back for more of The Sports Life. Will Tiemann here along with Dalton Shetler. Well, the show this go-around has been pretty basketball heavy. Took a look at two of the surprise teams so far in the Big Ten, Michigan State and Michigan, and got a little bit of the landscape of the women's basketball front in the Big Ten. And, boy, it's shaping up pretty good, and we thank Meghan McKeown for that. But the big moment's coming, the parting shots. I cannot wait, Dalton, to hear what you've cooked up for this week.
Well, and by the way, if you've missed anything with this show, make sure you give us a follow at Sports Life Now on Twitter, X, whatever you call it. We're at Sports Life Now. We post everything up there. Make sure you give us a follow there. My parting shot's a bit of a hat tip. The National Sports Media Association came out with the Sportscaster of the Year for each state. And in the state of Nebraska, they named Greg Sharp the Nebraska Sportscaster of the Year for 2024. Of course, Greg Sharp is the voice of the Nebraska Huskers for football and baseball, and we all know that he's been battling a really tough fight with cancer. He's been an inspiration to not just Husker fans, but I would say to all the colleagues, all the other broadcasters in the Big Ten Conference, the way he's been able to fight, still try to call some games. It has been really a touching, inspiring thing, and I thought this was a really nice way to acknowledge his great fight and his great work in the booth.
Well, Dalton, I would agree. I would agree wholeheartedly. Well, there's another guy amongst us who won that same award, but for the state of Indiana. His name is Don Fisher. He's in his 52nd year of being the voice of the Hoosiers, football and men's basketball. And boy, did he have a fun year this year. I mentioned the fact that he won because it's now the 27th time he has won this award. And my only hope for Don is knowing that his house probably is not as big as some houses, right? I hope they didn't give him like 27 different trophies. I think for Don, what they should have just done is given him a big trophy and then put little name things on it.
Like the Stanley Cup.
Yeah, something like that. That way you just got one big one and not like 27 all over the house.
Well, how about Don Fisher finally catching the New York Yankees for titles? Congratulations to Don.
That's a good one, Don. That's pretty good. And with that, that's a wrap for our show. We should also note that you can find us wherever you find your podcasts like SoundCloud, Spotify, and Apple. And make sure to check us out and hit subscribe. As always, we thank the Big Ten Network, and the Sports Life is produced by Dalton Shetler. Our executive producer is Wendy Hart. So on behalf of Dalton Shetler, I'm Will Tiemann, and thanks for your time.